Brandon, and welcome to WS Model Railroading. So, as you can see, we already kind of got a setup going here. Me and my father have been working on this one for about a year. This is just one room of the three. Unfortunately, we didn't get much progress, footage-wise of the build of this, but I can kind of show you some tips and tricks that we did in here, as well as what our current status is. Did a lot of work in here, got a lot of wires in here. Still not quite done yet. There's just some trees that we got to add over in the corner, maybe some small detailing and some small, some trees here and there, on the footprint to add a little bit more 3D to it. But we're almost there in this room, and then I can show you guys the other side of the room. So hopefully you guys enjoy, and if you do, go ahead and subscribe, maybe hit that notification bar and just follow along as the layout progresses. So this is our current room. It's in our mechanical room right now. So this was kind of my test area before I went to the main layout that everybody would see. So I realistically started on this side. This is where it all began. So originally, our base all consists of Homoso on the very bottom. And we do have OSB on the very bottom underneath that, just for more support. But to kind of keep everything quieter, and stuff like that, we used Homoso for our base. And then from there, we just kind of used cork to raise up the track. And then we got the track sitting on top of there. And then we used drywall compound for our roads, obviously just painted over. And then for my lines, they're not the greatest, but that I just used a colored pencil for, and that turned out okay in my opinion. So this room consists of mostly industrial facilities. So we obviously got our factory plant here, and then we got a transload area here, and this is more of a lumber kind of side of things. But we also got some wire hide back there. I did pick this up on eBay actually. So I bought a kit of basically random scenic accessories, and this was included, so this was already made for me, but it looks pretty simple. Just take some wood and obviously just run some wire or yarn or something into it, and kind of looks like a wire wheel. So that turned out pretty good. I did buy this, however, I could have easily made that, just like I made my pallets here. And unfortunately, they're not quite to scale, but for how cheap they were to make, I really don't have any complaints. For the boxes here, I simply just took wood in the same section. So you can buy little pieces like this that are in 3-foot sections, and you just cut to, whatever size box you want. You can get different sizes of this too. And then you simply just painted a color, and then I took a pencil and just drew my lines to make them kind of look like the boards on a box. You see I kind of did a couple in there, and then you can do that with barrels too, with the round wood sticks, but these were actually, I already had them. They were part of that scenic accessory kit, so I just used them and painted them. Then we got some trucks in here. These are all bought, not made. And then underneath we got some lighting. I can kind of show you some of the lighting we got in here as well. Basically the wire we used here is a security wire. I think it's 8 conductor. So we got 8 different wires to choose from. So obviously you can see a spool here. Our white and blue wires are going to be for all of our lights that run on 12 volt. And then we got a couple other wires in here for like track power, 5 volt power, because some stuff require 5 volt or 3 volt. So that's how we kind of have it organized throughout the bottom of the track there, and we just have it ran kind of hidden. It's not the cleanest, but you know what, it works. These are kind of our work shelf, because obviously when we put the layout out, we lost our space to actually work on stuff. So we got a couple shelves here we can work on stuff, and we got one over there as well. And then this is our test track here, so we don't screw anything up on the main track when we're making stuff, configuring stuff, and that just hooks up to our NCE power. So we got some power lines going along the whole track. That's just pretty simple. That's a kit. You can buy utility poles or, whatever kind of stuff you want to use, and you just throw them in. And then for the power lines, I just use yarn. Pretty straightforward there. Just runs all the way back there. And then we got some lights in here, obviously. So I think it's called Eva model. That's what most of these lights are. They work pretty well. I will point out that the wires are about 32 gauge, so you will need a really fine stripper in order to get those to strip correctly, unless you want to just try and make it work with, a pair of scissors or regular strippers. It's just a lot easier having the correct tool. So that's just my recommendation there. And they do throw out quite a bit of light. I'll just go ahead and turn all the lights off here so you can see. So it is pretty bright in here, no doubt. We do have a lot of lights in here too. I want to say we ordered 2 boxes of 24, 12, something like that. Can't quite recall, but we got quite a few lights in here. And then some of them I did custom make as well, like, so you'll see light poles throughout here. That is actually a light pole. This one's not throwing off light, but like these over here, those are custom made. That's just a simple little wood stick. And then I took some LEDs I got online and just painted over them and glued them and then ran them to the bottom. So you will see wires here and there, but I tried to hide them as best as I could, and I thought they turned out pretty well. And they're about the same brightness as the rest of the EVA model lights. And then for color, I ended up just taking a paintbrush and taking some yellow paint, because these are actually white LEDs in these light posts. You can kind of see back here in the construction area or gravel area, they're a little bit whiter, and that's because I didn't paint those, but I painted the street light looking ones so that they match a little bit better with here. And that you just throw a dab of paint, yellow paint on a brush, just dab the light, and then you can take it with your finger underneath the light till you basically wipe off as much as you need, unless it's, you know, perfect the way you brush it on. In the buildings, we simply just drilled from underneath up. So we got a couple lights in there. Those are just 12 volt LEDs with resistors already installed. And then I had extra paneling from my refrigeration storage over there that I ended up using as just kind of like an extra building in here. And this I just flushed up to the wall and painted and weathered a little bit and threw some trucks back there. And then obviously we just got a dead end right there because that's the end of the room. So we do have 2 rails going this way that goes into the other room. I'll show you that in a little bit. As you see, we got quite a bit of track layout in here. Let me turn these lights back on. So as we move, we got a fake tunnel. That's just all my stonework, you know, going over, and it'll eventually lead to the tunnel that's on the other side that kind of matches up, but we won't be drilling through the wall at any point for that. So for the stonework in here, I went nice and cheap, a little bit easy. Basically, this is all foam, and I'll show some pictures of that as well. So I stacked foam up to make my hill, sanded it down to make it nice and flat, and then I took a big old kitchen knife and I basically cut the grooves to make it look like sandstone. So you can see all the little slit marks. So I literally just took a kitchen knife, dug it in, and cut like this so that it didn't pull out the styrofoam, but it just cut a nice fine line. And I just did that multiple times to get that texture. And then after you do that, you can take a lighter and you kind of bring it close, or some sort of heat, and it'll kind of leave a nice texture to it, making it kind of look like stone. And when we get to the other room, I'll probably end up doing that, so I'll show you some tutorials on how to do that, but I thought it turned out pretty well. And then the rest is just pretty much paint. I hand paint a lot of the stuff that you see here. Like the building weathering, that's all hand painted. I feel like I just get a lot better effect rather than airbrush, which I did do the airbrush on the cars on some of them. This one is somewhat airbrushed. I'll show you a train over there that I airbrushed. But I feel like hand painting just turns out a little bit better in my opinion. So as for our ready mix here, that's just weathered, nothing too crazy. I threw some lights in. So we got a light coming in the building here. We got a light coming off the building there, and that's simple as just punching a hole, bringing the wire through, and I got the wires coming in back there, as you can see. And that's for all the little lights that I added on here. Then we go up here. We got my little log cabin, which I just threw a light in. And if you notice, we got a fire pit up here as well. And I just simply used some LEDs that I got from Amazon that have flickering diodes. So you can't see the greatest lights on. Well, you see there's a little flicker there. So basically I have a constant orange light and then a flickering yellow light. And you can do whatever you want with that, you know, if you want the flickering orange or if you want to go with like a red or something like that. That's just the way I did it. And then I just took some of those wood sticks that I use for the trees, and I just shaved them off and then painted them, and that's what I use for the little logs in there. And then obviously I got some logs up here and splinters. That's just shavings off of the same wood. And then just obviously cut to size to make it look like, you know, nice saw logs. We got a nice proto sitting here. That one I picked up at the market nearby for a pretty decent price. This one's all right for the size because we got a lot of tight turns in here, so it's going to be a lot harder to get the bigger locomotives to go on the tighter track. So this one should work just fine for that smaller radius. So for my background, as you can see, we kind of just got trees painted back there. I just mixed some colors and used either a sponge like so, something like that, or a little bit smaller because it's got a little bit more of a fine tip to it. So you can just go up and then just kind of pull off the wall a little bit as you're going up, so it kind of makes it a little lighter on the top, so it looks kind of like branches a little bit. I also used paintbrushes as well. I think this side I used paintbrushes, so it's very, very hard to tell much of a difference, but that's what we did there. For my ground, I did end up using static grass. I started with a base layer, actually just like that, so that's just a mixture of different fine turf that I had, different colors, and then just throwing the static grass on top of it, and that turned out okay, I think. So back here, behind our mountain, we got our old steam kind of yard sitting back there next to the roundhouse. And I got some aged parts sitting around the roundhouse that I just simply took because I work on the locomotives quite a bit for repair, so I just took a bunch of extra pieces I had. So we got the bottom of a car there, we got some wheels and a truck, we got some rails on there, and then back here, sorry if the Broadway is a little loud, it's steaming right now apparently. So then back here I just got some random motor parts that are internals of the engine that I just painted. Got another truck there, got a switch, got some wheels, and I just threw a bunch of crap in the back of that truck there. Just random stuff that I could find that would fit, that, you know, somewhat adds detail. And I got wheelbarrows sitting there too. Here's a couple more of those lights that I made. My wiring just goes straight below once again, so we got a couple lights in there to lighten it up. And this is just a three-way switch there. So back here we got Wisconsin Southern switcher. This one is DCC, no sound. And then we got a wow sound right here. I think this is the 464. Yeah, that looks about right, or 264. 464. And I am very impressed with this one. This one does sound very good for being a Bachmann. Usually Bachmanns don't run the greatest or even sound the greatest, but I'm very impressed with the wow sound in there. Then we got a nice old Milwaukee Road. I want to say this is like a U28 or something like that. I'm not sure on the brand. We ended up getting rails for this bad boy because we picked it up at a market and it was DC originally, and we swapped it over to DCC. We got our Canadian National SD75 sitting back here. This is an Athearn Genesis. This one's got a Tsunami 2200 card in there, so it's got some good sound in there coming out of there. And then lastly I got my Mahano, I don't even remember what this is. Is a 284 UP, and I've got the Blue Nami sitting in there. It was originally, the chip was supposed to go in there. That's an IHC XX command, but that just had too many issues and shorts, and it's just not, it wasn't going well. So I threw it in there, got that for like 50 bucks at the flea market, and then threw Blue Nami in there, and it worked out pretty well so far. Here we got our power substation. That one's just a kit. I connected it to the power plant that I have in the back here. If you guys are familiar with Wisconsin, there's actually a plant off of Highway 16 up in Portage, and that's what I painted off of when you're on that highway when you're going east. That's what direction you would get it. So basically I have a painted power line there, and then I have our yarn connected straight to it, just like so, to kind of look like it's bringing power to the substation. And then I currently don't have our yarn ran from the power lines to here because I still got to get back here and throw some trees in before I'm officially done back there. So I want to run or get those trees up before I run those lines. Over here we got our refrigeration facility. This is another Walther's kit. Thought it turned out okay. And once again, this is just where I'm punching through for my lights, and then basically using extra parts from the kits that kind of look like it would be a light housing, and I just mount them right up to there, right under the LED. Thought it turned out okay. I unfortunately ran out of this type, so I had to use a different type over here. And we got our parking. And those street lamps again. I got a couple signs. These are just kits that I bought with a bunch of signs in them. I ended up painting or using Sharpie on to get the best effect out of them. And if we go over here, we got our propane facility here. This one still needs a little bit of work, maybe some weathering. I'm not sure if I like the darker building right here. I might make that a little lighter. Then we also got a custom fabbed propane truck here, just because I don't want to spend $40 on trucks. So I just took one of my trucks that I got laying around, ended up painting it, throwing some different wheels on it because I didn't have wheels, and then I just created the actual propane part out of just this PVC, and then basically built the round edges with caulk until it kind of formed a propane LP tank. So over here we got a water tower, which if you're familiar with Adam's Friendship in Wisconsin, this is the exact color that one is painted. So it's not the prettiest. This is probably one of the first things I worked on in the room. This is where I originally started in the room. Was right along here. So our ballast is actually quite different. I used a medium ballast over here and then mixed in some small fine ballast. As for the rest is actually just fine ballast. So that's kind of where I started and had my trial and error session. This is also where I started with the rock texture. And then this is our trees here, because we're limited on space for actually putting trees up here. So I just had to paint them and add a little bit of extra texture rather than over here, where most of that's going to be covered by trees, so you won't even see it. Then we just got some signal posts here. Wires are running straight down. Those are just getting 12-volt power. There's resistors down there. We got a water heater here, so I had to use a lot of the pipe, you know, try and add it to the scenery so you don't see it as much. So we got our relief valve here that is my water tower. And then my drainage, which is the side of my signal tower. So that's how that works. Yeah. Then we got a little building here. This is kind of just a yard building, and we got a little light post sitting there, and I think I'm gonna add some fencing around the water tower here to make it look a little bit like we're trying to keep people out of there. And then this is our yard. Got a couple switches in there, got our couple lights, and all of our switches throughout the track are manuals. We might throw in some electrics on the other side, but so far it's just manual switching. Here are some of my passenger cars I've been working on. I got them for $20 each at a market, and I threw some lights in them. So now I got to get couplers yet, but they all got their lights in them. And then the back, I ended up drilling a hole for the rear light, and then I also got a speaker system in there so you can pick it up. And there's a board down here, a sound board, and then there's also a button right there. So when you hit that button, it's going to have a sound file on it of a dining car, kind of. So it's got people talking, chattering, and then forks and stuff like that making noise in there, so that when you're driving, it's in the rear so you can't hear the engine as much, but you can hear all that fun stuff. And I got the speaker right underneath these holes, coming through these holes, so it's inside the cab. And then this board is powered by a 12-volt battery, so it's got a charger right there. So you do have to pick it up, turn it on, picking the car up completely and put it back on the rails. But I figured this was the best option rather than going off of track power, because most of these boards require like 3-volt or 5-volt, and I really didn't want to deal with changing up any circuits or anything like that. So we got our rolling stock up here and some other accessories for the other side, the other rooms. Those are just don't have quite enough room in the yard, so we'll kind of see where those end up if they stay on the shelf, if we end up selling them or whatnot. And then we got some engines up here. We got a Burlington Northern. I got to figure out how I'm going to make DCC and sound, because I already put the chip in. There just wasn't enough room for the speaker and everything in there, so I don't know if I'm just going to buy one that already has installed. We got some project passenger cars here. I'm putting lighting in. They need some extra detailing. They're a little bit older, so they're a little beat up. You're probably wondering where the hell is our Wisconsin Southern engines. Well, you see one over there, I guess, but we do have a couple more. We got a nice shelf in here, so I can probably make some reviews on some of these, because we got a whole bunch of different brands in here. But we do have a Kato sitting right here that's DC and sound, and then we got a Broadway Limited sitting back here, and that one's got the Paragon 4 sound, which that one is very nice. We got a couple other engines in there as well. These are all our DCC and sound. We got a couple DC engines in here still that we are going to try and convert. Really depends on how easy, because I know we got a Walther's mainline over here that's going to be a little tricky, but we'll try. We also got a nickel plate up there. But yeah, that's basically the gist of what we currently have and have done. Current system is a NCE power cab, and I think it works pretty well. Apparently you can run up to 12 engines at a time, but I think that's a little bit crazy, and we might go a little bit less than that. Maybe just have a couple on the track like right now, and then maybe only run like 2 or 3, depending on what macros we want to program and stuff like that. Here's our current main power. So we got a couple transformers there that are supporting different power leads. So this one's our 12 volt right there. So we got a separate transformer powering that, so it's not powered all off of the track power. Here's our NCE, which we got plugged into there, and then we got a separate wire, telephone wire running to the other wall, so that we can control this board, the track, off of 2 controllers rather than 1. And then we just got our wires just drilled through. We did use wood, so we could just drill through just like that. And it's not the cleanest, but you know what? It's out of our way. You don't see it, so it works out well for us. So as we walk away from the mechanical room, we enter our hallway here between the 2 other rooms. We got a bridge that's going to end up going here that's going to collapse. It'll bring us to each room. So here's the layout that we have got the base started on pretty much. So on this side, we're going to plan on having a quarry going up the wall a little bit, have some tree line, as well as kind of like a park, wildlife park area. Then we got our town over here. We'll have a gas station over there. This is going to be more of kind of like a mountain hill type. Those are the 2 tracks coming out from the other side, as well as the road tunnel right there. So right here we'll probably have a pond, then a river or creek. Here's the side of where we're probably going to have some of that limestone as well, or again. And then this track basically the top track that you see that's elevated, that's all one track. So that comes from right over here, and it goes like this, and then there's a turnout right here. So we'll flip that once we get the train on this track, and it'll wrap around all the way, and it goes behind the mountain there, and then comes back around next to town, over the bridge, and then back. So that's going to be one continuous loop there. Then the second continuous loop will be coming out of the second track here, going into town, through the wall, and then over that collapsing bridge, which will then go around over there, probably have a turnout right about there, and then it'll come back. So we already got a turnout here. We got to throw it on the other side of the room to bring it back, and that will be our return line going this way. And we got a kind of like a switching track right here underneath all the crap, and then it'll come all the way in here and then come on the inside right around. And then right about here is where we're going to plan to have a sawmill, a bunch of trees, maybe a lake or a river or some sort, some distant hillside kind of feel to it. And then that just wraps around. You got another one of those switching tracks, and then it comes back. and then follows over here. So that's our big loop right there that we're gonna have. So in order for that loop to work, we'll have to have the bridge down continuously. Otherwise, we might have some macro tracks. Like we're gonna have a track coming into the quarry, so we might just have a train coming into the quarry, going somewhere along the track somewhere, just as a macro program, something like that. Same with maybe just a sawmill will have that macro. I'm not sure yet. But we're gonna have farm field over here, underneath all the crap, probably more hillside up there. And then basically this is all just gonna be rolling hills and kind of just scenery and stuff like that. We got church going right here, maybe a parking lot or a graveyard, something like that up there. What we're gonna try and do is make it seasonal. So we're gonna try and kind of have it fade from more summertime over to fall time. Not quite sure where we're gonna think of doing that. Maybe have the more fall stuff in the sawmill area, just because when you're cutting logs, you're gonna want that more in fall time, but we'll kind of think about that later. One other thing I'll point out, we also got our extension pro cab right here. So that's just another module. I can't remember what the name is for this plate, but it's basically the same thing that's in the other room, but this just extends the signal to the other remote that we got here so that we can control the trains from this side of the room instead of having to deal with the wire on the other side and controlling in the other room. We didn't quite want to go wireless just because of expenses. We didn't want to go too crazy on that. So this is our current setup. At least we can control the train, you know, on this whole side of the room via that remote right there. And then we got the third room, which is currently a home theater room. And we're just gonna have that run right on down here. We're gonna think of trying to have this more winter. Maybe that way we can have like Christmas lights in a town over there or something like that. So I was obviously got this big turnabout. I think we're gonna do some kind of mountain or something in here. And that just comes straight down, and then that's basically the end of the road there. So here's this homosode that I was talking about earlier. And then we can't do much for height for buildings and stuff right here just because of speakers there. I mean, we could, but not quite sure yet. As you can see, we don't have much drawn out for in here. But eventually a track will come down right here, probably do a big spin right here, and then come back. And then we'll probably have some macro tracks in here because we got our coal mine that's going to be over here. So we'll probably just have a separate track for macroing going through that. Won't connect to the main track. So we'll kind of see where that goes. But that's pretty much the gist so far. So from now on, hopefully I'll be able to bring you guys along on everything that goes on in here. Kind of show you some tips and tricks. And hopefully you guys enjoy. So without further ado, I think that'll pretty much do it for this video. Hopefully you guys enjoyed. Make sure to follow along if you guys are interested at all. Just go ahead and subscribe. Hit that notification button, whatever you want to do. If you guys have any questions or concerns, just let us know. Otherwise, hopefully you enjoyed the channel. And catch you guys in the next video.